I'm still waiting for Mauro. It's 5:30 now, so anytime now is the time that we will have Mauro with us, and I'm going to ask some very interesting questions. By the way, we have received loads and loads of questions from you people. I've made an Excel sheet out, and I must say that as students, as people who've passed 12th class, who are looking at options to study, you've sent some fabulous questions about career, about choices of what you need to study, about what happens after you become a designer, what is it that you should be expecting as a designer. So congratulations all of you, and it's brilliant. I think you're already there. The future is design, and hence the future is you. So big congratulations to all of you to have chosen to, or even thinking to go this path. And remember one thing, tech and coding is going to be the nervous system of the change, but what is going to ride the change is design interventions, and these interventions are going to be extremely innovative, and hence they will require designers like you thinking and understanding that the new world has to have the feature set of men and women like us, the touch of love, the touch of care, the touch that human beings need. But it also needs to be innovative. It also needs to be safe. It needs to be secure. It's going to be a world of data sovereignty, which means that we need to take care of data. So, you know, for example, for contract tracing today, we've all downloaded lots of apps, right? The government app is called Arogya Setu. And that reminds me that we have a few competitors who are also going to be joining in or must have joined in. Now we have 200 plus people. So we have 222 people right now. So the numbers of designers are increasing, and I'm quite excited, and I'm sure Mauro is going to be very excited. So I was talking about the different apps and the digital world that we live in, we stay in. So all these apps we have downloaded, so whether it's the Zooms of the world, so multiple music apps like the Ghana and the Spotify and the Geo Music that we've downloaded. All of this requires sometimes our location, sometimes our numbers. So it is very important that these companies at the back end take care of our data, and to ensure that our data is secure, it is important that somewhere someone sits and decides that the design of the product should be such that the consumer or the user should feel very secure to use it. So I don't know if you guys have used Zoom, and if you remember that when this lockdown started, Zoom had just about 20 million subscribers, and these 20 million subscribers used Zoom only for enterprise purposes. So they would only use it for talking within their corporate houses and within a specific team. Okay, let me quickly check if Mauro has come in and he sent me a request. Can I ask somebody from the team to quickly send him a message? Okay, I also have a message from Mohit. He says, well, we should discuss that how can we make workplaces that social distancing is followed in the current situation. Yes, of course. Great. So we have loads and loads of people, and all of them seem to be writing, and I seem to be not noticing at all. So good. I need to be. What's your name, ma'am? Yes, I thought I will introduce myself once Mauro comes in, because he's the one who's more important. But yes, I am Arnab Goswami for today. My name is Shweta Shalini. I am one of the advisors on the board of ImaginXP. Ma'am, my question is breaking butterflies. Okay, I like your name though. Ma'am, my question is that what are the subjects that we have in UX design? That I'm sure ImaginXP anybody will be able to tell you. So why don't you ask Webhav or Ruchit who are right here? I think we should ask some very difficult questions tomorrow, and we should learn from his journey because he is somebody who's been very, very successful in something that you guys want to do. There's a company called Fast Company, and Fast Company has rated Mauro Porcini as one of the most creative people present in the world today. So we are very lucky. I'm the luckiest. I'm speaking to him, but you're very lucky because you're going to be, I'm going to be asking questions that you asked. Yes, what are the more lessons in DIY solutions in interior design field? Okay, good. So this is Deep who's asking this. Okay, I will have to note down your questions, so many of them. So I'm going to be reminding the team, it's already 5:36. Mauro's joined in here. Okay, where can I haven't received. Hi everybody. Yes, Mauro, I can see you, but you will have to send me a request, and that is something that I will have to accept. So I have not seen your request, Mauro. So can you send me? Mauro is here. Oh yes, he's there. Okay, I've seen a lot of your comments here, but Mauro, you need to send me a request. I sent the request, he's saying. Okay, I haven't received the request. Hold on. I think... okay, just hold on. Is there any other place that I can see the request? Go live with. So can I send a reverse request? Viewers. So technology, no, I think I added you, Mauro. Did you find my request? Did you sign? You want to go back and sign in again? Okay. Just hold on. No, I haven't got the request. So I really think you'll have to log out again and come back again and send me a request tomorrow. I'll be sent again. Okay. Thanks to technology, I can't find the request here. Just hold on. No, I haven't got the request again. Just hold on. Let me see if I can just go to his... no, go live with Mauro Porcini. Waiting for Mauro, it says at my end, connecting. Oh, finally.
We did it.
Finally. Great. Thank you, Mauro. I was keeping the audience engaged. We have about 300 of them. So thank you so much. And
thank you and everybody.
This is what happens when technology takes over. So ladies and gentlemen, we've lost 10 minutes. And I just hope Instagram is kind to us. So let me quickly jump to introducing Mauro. I was already saying this, that Fast Company has introduced Mauro as one of the most creative people on this earth. Ladies and gentlemen, Mauro Porcini, PepsiCo's first ever Chief Design Officer, who's responsible for leading innovation by design across the company's food and beverage verticals and portfolios. So Mauro, yes, what got into the Americans? How did an Italian designer get into this big American dream? And how was it to build a design culture from the scratch?
I have no idea why they chose an Italian, but I think the fact that I'm Italian actually is totally random. I could have been literally Indian, Japanese, Brazilian. I think I brought in my diversity. So I brought in the fact that I was Italian. I'm totally Italian in my behaviors. But I started from the respect of the culture that was hosting me. It was the American culture. So I tried to understand the diversity of the culture, how they think, how they work. I try to understand the strengths of the culture and the strengths of my culture, and the weaknesses of my culture and the weaknesses of their culture, and understand how bringing in my culture, I could help a different culture working even better, 1+1. And then always thinking about the world, because we, in that size of a company, we wouldn't design just for the US or for Italy, but we'll design for India, for Africa, for many different regions and countries around the world. So always trying to understand all the different cultures in this journey has been key. And I think today, there is so much going on in the world, especially in the United States. You may have seen all the Black Lives Matters protest and the racing situation. This idea of embracing diversity, embracing different cultures, building a dialogue between people thinking in a different way is fundamental. And I think is also, by the way, at the base of how we think as designers, as a community at least. This idea of connecting with people from other cultures, from science to marketing, to consumer insights, procurement, legal, and then different cultures of people we design for. So people coming from different kind of backgrounds, different color of skin, different kind of religions or political preferences, and design for all of them, and design something that is relevant to all of them. That's what we do as designers. So I kind of
agree to almost everything, and I'm just thanking God, and so many other women are thanking God that you're Italian. I don't know why, but the soil makes men a lot more handsome.
Look,
okay,
yeah, go ahead.
So
it's better I don't answer this one.
I have a next question. Okay, in all sense, you are not a typical designer, and you've not had a typical design career as well. I mean, the long hair, the artistic, dreamy eyes, and I've seen through your career, and you've kind of worked on packaging, products, strategy, experience design, and so on and so forth. So, one, what do you enjoy the most, and why do you think PepsiCo or Indra Nui picked you up?
Yeah, well, first of all, when I was a kid, I really liked to observe the world, to observe people, to observe nature and animals, and even little insects, bugs, everything. I was always curious. And then I had two passions. The one was the one of art and creating and drawing. And my father was an architect and a painter, and he really influenced me in that. The other passion was philosophy and literature and writing and reading. And if you think about what philosophy is, at the end of the day, the philosophers are people that investigate the primary cause of life, why we exist, why we do things, the why of everything. What they do is literally asking why. And then when they get an answer, they ask why again, and why again, and why again. And so now think about what a designer does. A designer investigates reality, the world, observe what's going on out there, ask the why, because you don't just look at the surface of things. You really try to understand the primary cause of things, and then you create solutions. You craft solutions, and this is what I enjoy to do. And so the solution could be a piece of packaging, could be communication, could be a product, could be a service, could be a strategy, could be anything. But it all starts with that understanding of people, and then the creation of something using the design tools, the ability to craft, to prototype, eventually materially with a mock-up, but even virtually with something that is an experience or something that you cannot touch, that you're using digital technologies as an example. So this is what I enjoy to do all the time. Part of this design project, one of the most important design projects that I did in the past 20 years, is being the one of designing culture. So you enter in a company like PepsiCo, you enter in a company like 3M, you understand very quickly that it's not just about designing the product, the project, the brief that they give you. If you just try to do that at the beginning, when I started the journey, the company would just reject you. Because if they don't understand the value of design, they never did it before, they won't let you do it. So you understand that the first thing you need to design is the way of thinking of the company, is the culture, is the way they are organized. So when you ask me, why Indra hired me, I think one of the key reasons is that when I went to talk with her, our conversation was not about the beautiful design projects that I did in my past. We talk also about that. Mostly they were in my portfolio, in my resume. She knew about them. We talk about some of them. But what we really talked about was how to design a new culture. And I think what probably somehow was interesting for her is that she didn't ask me about that, because it's not the first question you ask a designer when you interview the designer. I came proactively with that idea. And I think she understood perfectly that to introduce any kind of culture, not just the design one, you need to really be able to understand how to drive it, how to create it, how to wire it inside the organization. So when a designer arrived, the designers are supposed all crazy and creative. And I was, from the way I dress and my accent and everything. So she was expecting that. And we need, I gave her that. But then this designer could talk also about processes and culture and business. I think that's the mix that was magic. And I think anytime any of us, I see many designers, connected with us today, any of us, when you go to a company, don't think just about the project that you're going to design, but think about all the conditions to make that project happen, first of all, in an efficient way, in a successful way, with the highest possible quality, and then get to market and win in market. That's the big difference between an invention, a concept, an idea that is so easy to have at the end of the day. You're a little bit creative, you have ideas or you invent stuff. And innovation. Innovation is to take that invention and idea, go through all the roadblocks, the obstacles of culture, processes, business models, all the constraints that you have, cost, manufacturing capabilities. You go through all of that and it gets to market and it wins. That's an innovation. Anything else is just a good idea.
So on that, I want to ask you a supplementary question. So for us in the digital world, Apple stands way, way apart, and everybody talked about Steve Jobs and not Jonathan Ives. So where do you think that design is important? And, is there a need, because India is just about rising up to the concept of the CDO. So do you see the need of a chief design officer in every industry, every sector, and every segment?
Yeah, I do. Look, with all the respect for Johnny Ive, that I think is an amazing designer, but I think the real CDO of Apple was Steve Jobs. And again, even if Johnny could have been that and had all the qualities to be that, the reality is that if you have Steve Jobs by you, he is the CDO. There is nothing to do. The guy understood design in depth. He studied also, partially design. And then he was the ideal design thinker. Is like exactly the same as Leonardo da Vinci, that I think is one of the most amazing design thinker that history gave us. I don't think it's a coincidence that Walter Isaacson, that wrote the biography of Steve Jobs, wrote also the biography of Leonardo da Vinci. I recommend both books because they're really, really inspiring. But what is a design thinker? It's somebody that is able to connect empathy, so the ability to understand people, their needs and their wants, with strategy. So let's say I understand that people need something in society. Then I need to understand if it makes sense for my strategy in 3 dimensions: my business model, the culture of my organization, and the processes that I use, the manufacturing processes or the development processes. So I may understand that society needs something, but maybe my company doesn't have the culture to do it, or doesn't have the capabilities to do it, or doesn't have the business model, for instance, to access the people. So the first thing you need to understand is, can I design the culture, the process, those processes of that business model and connect it with that need? So the design project is not anymore designing a product for people, but is designing also the strategy, the business model, everything, that give you the possibility to take that idea to market. And then the third pillar, so I say empathy, strategy. The third pillar is prototyping, is creating. And so Steve Jobs was doing that. Johnny Ive was an amazing, sparring partner, an amazing right hand. He was a great industrial designer. that helped Steve Jobs, in developing the vision. You will never know. Maybe if Johnny Ive was in another company by himself without a Steve Jobs there, he would have played a role. But he had Steve Jobs there. It's
Great.
funny because I have
So,
Tim Cook. I'm talking to you, and Twitter just sent me a notification of a tweet of Tim Cook, the current CEO of Apple. Anyway, let's go on.
yeah, so they are
They're
hearing
listening
you
to
for
us.
sure. Yes. Okay. So, we've come live on this platform of ImaginXP. ImaginXP is a design education partner for a lot of students. They actually ask a lot of students to send in their questions to you. And you've been a design inspiration to loads and loads of people, most of the students. So I am picking up a few questions from the students. So one of the students asks, did you know that you were going to be a designer when you were younger? And what was it that you did then to become a designer now? And I want to add to that, your English is fabulous. When did you start learning English?
You know already the answer, or you're really asking?
No, I didn't know. I don't know.
Because it's an interesting story that I always tell students. So maybe let's start with that. I studied French at school. So when you are 10 in Italy, back then, now when you're 6, but back then, when you're 10, you start to study. And back then there were still a lot of French teachers. And so they were taking 20% of the population of the people, and they would force them to study French. So I remember I was furious when they told me you study French, because I knew that English was starting to become important. Not as today, because social media didn't exist, it was a different world. But obviously you knew that you needed English. So I studied French, and then I'm 22 and I don't speak one word of English. And at that point, actually I was 23. And at that point you're like, well, it's too late. It's too late to learn English in a good way to use it at work. A couple of years later, I was going to be graduated, enter the work. I didn't have the money to go study abroad or to stop 1 year and study English. So I needed to learn it fast and go to market and go to work. So I thought it was just too late. All my friends studied, when they were 10, too late. Until somebody happened in my life, the role of mentorship that can change your life. This person was Stefano Marzano, who was the chief design officer of Philips, a hero for us studying industrial design. And I met him when I was 19. I remember I was in a bus in the center of my little village, 2 hours from Milan, and a friend of mine calls me, and she's like, "Oh, there is Stefano Marzano in my house. He was a friend of the father of this friend of mine." And she's like, "You wanna come for a coffee after lunch?" And I had so many things going on. I needed to go to soccer practice, things that I couldn't really cancel. But I followed my gut feeling. I dropped everything and I went. And I met Stefano. And then after that, I met him. He really inspired me. And then after that, I was studying philosophy. And, a few years earlier, I studied philosophy. And I had this idea of the philosophers that were writing to each other, the teacher and the student. So I started to write him letters that he never answered. But then, and not many, let's say twice per year. At a certain point, he decided to send me 2 books that he wrote in English, and he wrote me on these books. I still have them today. He wrote me, "I'm sending these books to you in English, even if I have them in Italian. I'm sending them to you in English because you need to learn English if you want to do something relevant in the world." And that really inspired me. My parents never told me this. My parents, they never traveled. They didn't understand that the importance of the English. Long story short, this guy took the time, in his busy schedule, to send 2 books to a student that he essentially didn't know, but he saw that I was so driven, so inspired, and it changed my life. I decided then to apply for a scholarship in Dublin, and at 24, I went to Dublin and I studied 1 year in Dublin English, and that's when I learned. And I studied design in English, so think how uncomfortable it was going to a university to do exams in design, but in a language I didn't know. So I went out of my comfort zone. I tried, and today I'm speaking in English to you. I forgot also the first question that you asked me, by the way. What was the first question that the student asked?
I was actually asking you that when you were younger, did you know that you're
Oh,
going to be a
yeah.
designer? So you.
I'll answer. I'll be shorter on this, but it's an important one as well. When I was young, look, I grew up. In the past many years, I've been celebrating so much the role of my parents in my life, because I think when you're young, you don't understand what they do for you. My parents had two values that always cherished and celebrated. One was culture. For them, the most important thing was culture. The other one was to be a good human being. That, for an Italian, this means in their, mind means to be a Catholic person, go to church and everything. But you can translate that in values that are true to any kind of person, religion or no religion. So be a good person. So I've been always driven as a kid by this idea of getting as much culture as possible, know-how, knowledge as possible, and doing it in the right way. I also was, excited by this idea of writing. I always wanted to write a book or create something that would impact the life of people. And I love to design, to draw. And so I never realized there was a profession called design. I didn't know, about the designers. I just didn't. And then at a certain point, I was going to study architecture at school. And then a friend of mine, called me and told me, look, they just opened a new faculty in Italy, in Politecnico, called design. And I applied for that. I did a test. They were admitting 500 people, and I got first in the test. I was like, oh, that's maybe my career. But even when I did that, I didn't realize what it was. I just thought, well, it's something that is going to give me more opportunities than architecture, because it's something new in Italy. And because all the designers of Italy were all architects or engineers. There was not a real university for design until then. So long story short, after a few months I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. This is what I always dreamed to do. I didn't know a school like this existed. And so I think it's so important to teach people in high school or even before, students, young people, new generations, tell them about this amazing discipline that many people don't know it exists. And the one that, you always think is just styling or it's something very different than what in reality design is. We should really communicate more about what we do.
So you'll be surprised. In ImaginXP, we get a lot of these engineers who are already working with these large corporate houses and are coding. And one fine day, they come back to us saying that, oh, I'm so bored of my profile and I want to do something more like in life. And they come back and do the user experience design course with us. And that's the life that they look forward to. And you are certainly an inspiration to all of them. My next question before we lose time
can I tell you?
Yes.
Can I tell you something?
Yes.
I think is very important related to what you just said and also to the story I just told. My parents never ever told me, well, you need to be successful or to make money, and they never themselves were going after that. Never. So they were an example of people that were going after culture, good values, but never money and success. And today, and the story of these engineers that want to study design, they give me this idea, engineering already eventually will give you money and success. You don't need to study something else. That's pure passion if you shift to something else that you really love. And it's a beautiful story. I hear, unfortunately, so many young people and students that often ask me, well, how can I be as successful as you? Or how can I, become rich or whatever? And it's so sad. It's so sad. Usually what I tell them is this, for instance, when I'm in front of a class of people, I tell them, look, if your goal is going to be successful and rich, the vast majority of you will fail miserably. Because the reality is that not everybody can be successful and rich. You need to be also lucky, many things need to happen. But if your goal in life is to have knowledge, to know stuff, and to be a good person, there is a high probability that all of you will win. And then the good news is that if you do that, that's the way to be successful and rich. So some of you will also get that. That is an additional beautiful thing to have. but it cannot be the goal. It cannot be the goal.
So I'm so happy that you say this. My father is on Instagram and he's watching us. I just saw him wave a hand. And trust me, he's always told his kids, just follow your passions and give it your best. And remember, you've come into this world for this larger purpose of life. Find your purpose and ensure that you just live up to that one purpose of life. So bang on. Tell me.
What's the name of your father?
My father's name is Professor Shishir Kumar. He is
it's too difficult for me to pronounce.
And he's the youngest. He is the youngest entrepreneur of my family. So yes, he's saying a hi to you, Dad.
Hi.
So yes.
I don't want to butcher your name, but.
So in these trying times, do you think design thinking has a role? And I've seen a lot of work happening around COVID, and you contributing to quite a bit. But do you think in the new normal, the new thinking is design thinking?
Yeah, I profoundly believe that. And not because I'm a designer, but if you think about what design thinking is about, we mentioned it earlier, empathy, strategy, and prototyping. What that really means at the end of the day is that we put people at the center of everything. We start with people, we end with people. And it seems obvious because you're like, of course, if you do innovation, you do that. The reality is that many companies, big and small, often put something else at the center of everything. For instance, technology, and then they defend technology with patents and barrier to entry. So there is no interest on creating the best solution for people. There is interest on being successful economically, and then you defend that success with technological patents. Or anyway, if you think about the science community, that obviously I love and respect and we work with, but what drives a scientist is to invent stuff, to create a new patent. Then often they don't control how that patent will be applied. And so if you think about the invention of the nuclear power and the way it's been used for the atomic bomb, or if you think about the invention of plastic and how it's been misused, in the environment we live in. So often you don't have, that control. If you are in business, in marketing, the reality is that if you work in a company, what drives you is to grow that business, what advance your career, what you brag about with the media and with your friends. It's taking a business from A to B or creating very famous brand. Unfortunately, that's true even if you don't create the most amazing product for people. If a product is okay or is even mediocre or average, make your business grow like crazy, you are very successful. You will grow in your career. So business people are, by definition, the advocates of business, and the science people, they are the advocate of science. Now think about what drives designers. We get really, really excited. Our career advances, and we can brag with all our friends if we create amazing products. If we create, somebody called them cool products, somebody called them meaningful. Designers, we like to call them meaningful, but the reality is, if we create something that people love, the people use, the people engage with, we are by definition the advocate of people inside the business world. We're there reminding everybody, we need to make money with it, but come on, let's do something amazing. And that's why we become the ambassador of sustainability, of health and wellness, of usability, because we care about people. I define designers as people in love with people. And if you tell this story to any organization and the business world, eventually they will tell you, well, what about the consumer insights people? They do care as well. Yes and no, they do care. They are the connection with the world and with the society, but they miss something that we have as designers. We transform the insights into action. We transform what we learn from the world, the data, the information that we have, the conversations that we have with consumers and users, in products, in brands, in solutions, in things that people can use. And so we have this magic power, and also with that, this important responsibility, because we need to do the right thing, or we screw up things even worse.
Great. So I have another question, but before that, I need to quickly jump to the section of my life, which is called either or. Okay. And you need to pick one and give us a reason in one line. And this has to be real quick. Okay. So tell me, in your shoes or with your shoes?
In your shoes, because it's about the other person. I'm gonna get in the shoes of the other.
So tell us about in your shoes. I know about it, but I'm sure our audience don't know about it. So it's a podcast.
It's a podcast that we just recently launched. We actually recorded in December and January. Because of COVID, we put it on hold, and now finally we are releasing the first episodes. And it's all about interviewing amazing people, creative people from any kind of industry and background, and getting in their shoes, trying to understand how they are changing the world, what they
How
dream.
many pair of shoes do you have?
More than 300. I'm not really proud of it, you know, it's a pure consumerism, but at the end of the day.
I'm happy you chose in your shoes. Okay, next question. A designer is born or built? Quick.
Is born. Oh, yeah, trust me. I always talk about this. Is born, and then you build on top of it. But I profoundly believe that that kind of talent is natural. Like, you know, you are a good cricket player, a good soccer player, you know, a superstar. Then you still need to train. You still need to build, you know, your skills. But then that talent has to be there. Okay.
Okay. Design sprint or complete design process?
Well, can I say both? This is very important. You need both. You need both. Today it's important to move as fast as possible.
Okay, great.
Process
Why is process important?
Yeah, process is important because if you just have intuition, a company, a reality, a society won't be able to leverage the intuition to create good for the world, for the communities. It will be just, imagine, it's raw energy that cannot be tamed and used for the good.
Okay, now this is tough. People or product?
Oh, people.
People
it is
or
not
product?
tough.
Okay, good.
People.
A tougher one. An Italian fashionista or an American go-getter?
This is an American, I mean,
no, you have
for sure an American. Okay, Italian go-getter.
No, and you have to be quicker. This is not done. Pizza or burger? Pizza or burger?
Pizza, totally pizza. No doubt.
Okay, this one is tough again. Insta story or LinkedIn? You
want to know why? Because it's visual. Insta story, because it's visual. I love LinkedIn. I'm very active, but I'm an image person.
Okay, great. So design is art or science?
It's both. It's the mix of both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take a pick. IQ, EQ, or SQ? SQ is
EQ. Absolutely EQ. It drives both.
Idea or implementation?
Idea. And this is unfair because you need both. If you have just one of the two, you fail. If you literally.
This is going to be toughest. Nicolo or Sebastian?
Come on, both. They're my little nephew. I love them both.
I got you. Come on.
Yeah.
You've been saying both to almost all the questions. Cycling or running?
Cycling.
Okay, good. Innovation or commercialization?
Innovation.
Great. Coming back to the questions. So you've finished the either or section, and I think you've passed with flying colors, except a couple of questions where you said both and didn't pick up either or. I'm going to take a question from one of the students again. His name is Sayan Chakraborty. He sent a visual question to you, a video question. It says, which part in a UX design career is the most difficult and also the most crucial?
That's an interesting one. But look, I don't think the UX design career is any different than any other design career, and they all have the same kind of difficulties. If you are unable to understand people, you won't be able to create anything relevant and different. I think, you know, especially in this new world we live in, you were mentioning earlier the role of data. You know, if we want to mention one challenge that we all have as designers today, everybody's talking about data. Everybody's talking about, you know, there are even people that are saying data may replace designers. And this is, I think, the craziest thing that I ever heard. You know, if you think about the primordial design process, the very first one, it was the prehistoric man inventing, you know, essentially chiseling a stone to create a tool. By the way, a flexible one to prepare food or to hunt, and you know there were many different use of that stone. And you know, in that you know, from that moment, anytime somebody creates something, there is always a need of a person. Could be your need, or you design for somebody's the need of somebody else. So if there is somebody else, you ask this person, okay, what do you need? And then you create something, you give it to the person see it, and he's like, well, yeah, it's that, but you need to modify this, you need to do that. So you take the tool back, you start to modify it, adapt it, and then you give it back to the person. The person like, yeah, now it's good, but why don't you do that? So this is the conversation, and then finally you create your product, right? Now, in this global society we live in, with millions of people we serve, with all these processes in these companies, we don't have anymore that conversation. There is a distance. And so data are a way to replace the conversation. They give you information that a person will give you in a conversation. But you still need the designer to interpret, you know, that conversation, to transform those information into a product. So in anything you do, including creating user experiences, is all about deeply understanding people and transforming that in something that makes sense for your people and the experiences you're building for them is key. And then you said it earlier, you know, when I say both, it is about the idea and is about implementation. I saw so many people that are really good thinkers and they don't know how to execute, or people that are just good executor, but they don't know how to dream. And if you don't know how to dream, you will never innovate. But you need both, else you're not.
Perfect. Now, I have another section of my interview, and this is called One and Only, okay? Again, okay. I need some quick answers. Now, I'm not going to give you a lot of time to think. So I'm going to ask you one word or one line answers. One thing that inspired you to be a designer. Quick.
Leonardo da Vinci.
Good. One thing that you do every morning. First thing that you do when you
I watch my garden and I get inspired by nature.
Oh wow, very nice. That's a beauty. One thing that is on your bucket list that you are yet to achieve.
Yet to achieve? I want to do a TED talk.
Ah, nice. I hope Chris is watching you. He's a close friend of mine, so I'm going to put your name across. One project and one of your own project or idea that you are extremely proud of.
One that we launched a couple of days ago called Alternative Hydration Platform is a machine to create a customized drink that is healthy and sustainable.
And that was for PepsiCo, with PepsiCo?
Yeah. I can talk more about this if you want, but I try to be fast.
No, yes, sure. So one of the times that you knew that you fucked up.
Oh, one, I fucked up. Oh gosh. I need to think. This is a difficult one. Well, there is, let's put it this way, because there is not a specific project. I wouldn't need to explain the project, but is when you push too hard, you push too much. You're like, gosh, you know, now I'm gonna lose the big war, and maybe I won the battle, but I'm alienating these people. So we always need to be careful. You may lose a battle to win the war.
One book that is always by your bedside.
Well, the biography of Steve Jobs is so inspiring in so many ways.
One teacher that you still remember? Teacher.
Eccelsa Rotondella, my teacher of philosophy when I'm between 15 and 18 years old.
And you had a crush on her, or she pulled you out of class?
No, actually, she made me discover something I didn't know it exists, philosophy. And it, you know, the beauty of philosophy, it helped me relativize everything. You know, I grew up in a Catholic culture where I thought that all the world was Catholic, right? I mean, Italy is like that. And then at 15, I start to study philosophy, and you start to see all different point of views, completely different on anything, religion, existence of the world, science, everything. It completely opened my mind, completely opened my mind. I think every designer of the world should study philosophy.
Perfect. If Mauro Porcini was a color, which color would that be? One color that defines you.
I really love pink.
Oh, nice. Good. That's why a lot of women love you. One icon, if you would have chosen you as an icon, what would that be?
What do you mean? I mean, like a person, what icon that
Yes,
I'm
yes.
not sure I understand.
Yes,
Well,
so
unfortunately, I'm going to repeat myself, but it's literally, once again, Leonardo. And I didn't explain yet why, but it's because he was a perfect mix between a dreamer, an artist, an engineer, a doer. I mean, it was just what we all should do.
perfect. One important thing that you learned from Indra Nooyi.
For me, it was amazing to understand the complexity of running a company of that size and how she was able to do it with strategic vision, but always connecting with empathy and with the ability of being a woman. I think, look, and this deserve a little bit a longer answer, but I will be short.
Please.
But
Please.
look, Indra is one of the most amazing model of women leader. And by the way, in the case of America, also a diverse woman leader, being, not American, Indian. And why I'm saying this? Because she was not one of those women that needed to remind everybody that she was a woman all the time. She was, before anything else, an amazing CEO, gender neutral. But she knew how to become a woman, and leverage that diversity that she had to drive things with empathy and courage. I'll give you two examples that are really, for me, they're amazing. One is she used to write letters, personal letters, to the parents of some of his executives. So she wrote a letter to my parents, and my mother, she told me, when I received the letter, I started to cry like crazy. And the letter was about, thanking her for the education that she gave me, and for, gifting me to the world and to PepsiCo.
So sweet.
But it was the letter of a mother to a mother, of a woman to another woman. And by the way, it was real, it's authentic. On top of it, imagine how you create loyalty of the family for the company. It is also strategically amazing. The second one, and I'll be quick, in a moment of, I was in a very difficult moment of my life for a variety of different reasons. I was in this big meeting of a week from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. with 25 of the top executives of the company there. We were doing strategic planning. Indra was there, and everybody was talking to her. These meetings are essentially a presentation of the plan to the CEO. So I was one of many there in the room. She's the only person that immediately understood that I was in crisis. I was sad. There was something going on. So after 1 hour of meeting, at the first break, she comes to me and she's like, "What's going on? There is something that is not working." And she sees that my reaction is, there is discomfort and sadness. She's like, "Come with me." She brings me to her office and she asks me what's going on. And at that point, I open up, I start to cry, I tell her everything. And actually, even before I do that, she told me, "Don't look at me as a CEO, look at me as your mother, and so I do, and I open up, and then she's amazing. And after that, she's been checking on me, every week, things would go better. And so that was, she had the sensitivity of a special human being before anything else. On top of it, I think is also a woman kind of sensitivity that eventually men can have as well, but it's really a mother kind of sensitivity. She's the only one that noticed, and the only one that took action. Amazing. That's what I learned
Mauro,
from her.
you've been talking about culture quite as much, and I'm so proud to say that this is Indian culture. She was all and out an Indian. She was bought in the most simplest of the manners, and she is somebody that we all really look up to. Margaret Thatcher had once said that leadership is like being a woman. If you have to actually tell the world that you're a woman, then you are not a woman. And it's the same for being a leader. So yes, bang on. My last question to you in this category is one of the things, and this is by one of the students, one of the things that you do when you need to get an idea and you're getting none. What do you do?
I get out of the room and I walk around wherever. If I'm in New York City, I work in the city and get inspired by the city. If I am in the Hamptons, by the beach, outside of New York, I work in nature. But when I was in Minneapolis, eventually, it's not a city as inspiring as New York. I would just walk outside. So you walk wherever you are with an open mind and with curiosity, because you can be surrounded. We are every day surrounded by amazing things. And so walk, refresh your mind, and with curiosity, look at what's around you. And then ideas usually come. But if you're stuck, get out and change context.
Very nice. So here I end this section. I want to tell you, Mauro, in India, to fight COVID, the government of India launched an app which is called the Arogya Setu app. Now, Arogya Setu in Hindi, which is our local language, means the app which tracks your health. So it was basically to track contact tracing, right? So it is an app which, and the best was, that, and we know, and all our heart went out to Italy when Italy was suffering. But India, we started the lockdown very, very early. So we started lockdown early in the month of May, and within a week and a half, we basically we launched this app for contact tracing. Now, this app was given to design students of ImaginXP. A few hundred participated in redesigning and rethinking the app by their own standards and by adding and giving solutions. This is a solution that we are now going back to the government with by saying that, yes, students have redesigned this app in this certain way so that post-COVID, you can again use the app to for contact tracing if another pandemic, God forbid, comes by. So yes, we have
Wonderful.
3 people who have won this challenge. It was a challenge. So this is a platform where we were supposed to give away those prizes and give their names. So the person who stood third with a score of 68.25 out of 100 is a person called Anoop Ruben. So Anoop, if you're with us, congratulations to you.
Congratulations.
And tomorrow you need to congratulate Anoop. I
Congratulations,
saw what
Anoop.
he's done, and the person who stood second in the design challenge with 83.5 score is a person who's called Sagar Khatrani. So you can congratulate Sagar as well.
Sagar, congratulations.
And you'll be very, very surprised that the person who's actually won this challenge is a third-year student who's still studying design education and who's taking his design education from this place called Dehradun. He studies in Dehradun Institute of Technology. And I met this young man called Yogesh Dhakal. He's got 89.75% scores. So there you go, Yogesh. Congratulations to you. Please congratulate Yogesh Mauro.
Yogesh, bravissimo, bravissimo.
And we want to have these design challenges for these students. And one of these days, we will request you to come on our jury so that we can present some global cases to them as well.
With pleasure.
This live was also partnered by an app which was called Simply Learn. Simply Learn is a platform with ImaginXP that gives out online courses for students. So while we are all sitting at home in the lockdown, we've been studying and students have been upgrading themselves and upscaling themselves. And I think these are the platforms which are helping. So one last question to you, Mauro, before we say goodbye to you is, what is it that you, one, realize during this lockdown? What did you value the most? And which series did you binge watch?
Which series? I realized that slow down is possible and it's beautiful. I was always rushing. Is part of who I am. Since I was a kid, my mom would tell me, I couldn't keep you there. You are always running. So slow down, it doesn't mean to just don't do things. For me, it means to canalize, focus my energy on different kind of things. So for instance, I started to paint again, and I'm writing my book. I'm taking care of my garden. So it's trying to slow down on certain things where you had a pace that was insane, and then focus on other things. By the way, very important, your loved ones, people, your friends and your family. That's extremely important. What was the second question?
Which series did you binge watch?
Oh, I'm so bad at remembering the titles. Let me see. What is the series that we watched last night? Five. So
nice.
Five is really nice. And by the way, from the same author, all of them. I think there are 3 or 4, at least in Netflix in the US. I don't know.
So we have just about 40 seconds left. So tell me one thing that you valued the most during this lockdown.
Love for your close ones, but also love and connection with everybody else. I think we saw a unity of the world that we never witnessed before.
Thank you so much, Mauro. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you. This was amazing. And thank you for joining us. We'll just hope that we'll keep this connection going. And may there be love, may there be peace, and may there be slow down that finishes and we come back to our normal lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.